Let's get more analysis on all of this with Rami Khouri. He's a distinguished public policy fellow at the American University of Beirut. Rami, it's always good to have you on. Speaking there to Zaina, we see these demonstrators outside the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv, and it's very clear that they believe Washington is still the strongest chance of seeing this war come to an end, putting that pressure on Netanyahu and his government to sign a deal. And of course, for them, it's about getting their family members home from Gaza and seeing this war come to an end. Very clear then, like so many of us can see, so many analysts have been saying, Washington is the one who can actually end this by putting that pressure needed on Israel.
Well, that's correct. And that's been the case for not just the last 2 years, but the last 25, 30 years. But the United States has shown through its actions, forget about its words or UN votes or whatever, through its actions, it has shown that it is willing to support 95% of what Israel does. Occasionally, they'll tell the Israelis, don't formally annex the West Bank or don't do this. And sometimes they tell Israel, don't do this, like Biden told Netanyahu, don't attack Rafah a year and a half ago, and the Israelis did, and Biden did nothing. So the actions of the United States seem to fully support what Israel is doing in its genocidal assault, and regional actions as well, attacking Qatar, attacking Yemen and other places. So the U.S. has the total ability to force Israel to modify its policies. It has never used that power in recent years. Only once at the beginning of the first negotiations about a year and a half ago to get some hostages released and prisoners exchanged held in Israeli jails. The U.S. pushed Netanyahu when Trump first came into office on this term. That was probably the only example of some political pressure that was very short-lived. So yes, the U.S. has the ability to bring this war to an end and to push for a serious negotiation for a permanent regional peace agreement, not just between Arabs and Israelis, but also between Israelis and Iranians, and the Turks can be involved, and everybody can be involved if they want. But the U.S. has shown no inclination to do that. They talk about regional peace, they talk about ending wars, but their actions support militarism, colonialism, settlement expansion, and genocidal Zionist Israeli brutality. So there is this tension, which is in American policy, which has never been resolved in the last 75 years.
So when they bring about this 21-point plan that they say they presented to Israel, they've spoken to Arab and Muslim-majority country leaders about. From what we know from this plan so far, do you believe that it's feasible, that it's something that Israel and Hamas will agree to?
In its current shape, no, it's not feasible because both sides will have objections, will want amendments made. But there is one thing that's significant about this plan. From what we've seen in press leaks, it hasn't officially been released yet. The one significant thing is the United States seems to be taking positions that are contrary to what it used to take before. For instance, there's nothing in the plan about turning Gaza into a Riviera for international investors. There's nothing in the plan about pushing the Palestinians out of Gaza. There's nothing in the plan about Israel permanently staying in Gaza. And there is a section in the plan that talks about moving after a ceasefire and prisoner and hostage exchange, moving to towards a Palestinian state. So there are new elements in this plan that are potentially very significant, but they're just words on paper. And we've had this before. We've even had paper agreements before, like the Oslo Accords and others, that the Israelis completely ignored, like the ceasefire agreements over the last 2 years. So you can't put a lot of trust in words, even written words, even words in an agreement that both sides sign on to, because the tradition that we've seen in the last, say just the last 2 years, has been that the U.S. and the Israeli government routinely go back and change their position after they agree, or they make a proposal and then the Israelis pressure Washington and they change it. So we have to wait for the final formal statements from the Israelis, from Hamas, the other Palestinians, the Arab countries, the U.S., and others who are involved in this. That will take time, but there are elements in the text that has been leaked that are, let's say, intriguing. And I would, as somebody who has spent the entire 60 years of my adult life working for a negotiated, peaceful Palestinian-Israeli negotiation that is fair to everybody, I would say that this is a moment that is almost unprecedented. To see the United States unilaterally put some words on paper that contradict what it said 2 months ago and 3 months ago and go directly against what the Israelis want is intriguing. It's new. Does it mean that there's a policy change coming? We don't know. The record would suggest no, that these were just words designed to attract you into a process and then blow that process up, which is what the US and Israel have done repeatedly over the last couple of years. For instance, the negotiations for the Gaza ceasefire, the attack on the Hamas negotiators in Qatar, the Lebanon negotiations with Hezbollah. These were all negotiations that the US and Israel were pushing, and at the same time, the US and Israel were planning military attacks. So you can't trust the US and Israeli positions only on the basis of their words, but you have to challenge them. You have to call their bluff in a way. And I think this is what Hamas and the Arab countries have already pretty much agreed to the broad outlines of the proposal, and they want changes made. And we're going to find some fascinating negotiations going on. You know, students of conflict resolution and negotiations should really take out their notebooks and take notes for the next couple of weeks, because this is going to be a really powerful lesson in how negotiations can succeed if they're fair to both sides, or how they can fail if one side tries to impose a colonial dominance.
And hopefully it will end in a deal that benefits both sides equally. Rami Khouri, thank you very much.